Meanwhile, on the comic box. Right? There was something like that. Now. It's the Wonder Woman theme. Hey everyone, welcome to the Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I am Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and this is the very special issue number 50 of the Comic Box, which also marks 1 year of me doing this podcast. I apologize if it's a little echoey. I am recording in my basement and not in my little audio booth because I am joined this week for the first time in a long time by the wife. Hi, wife.
Hi, husband.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It was a really nice day today. So I hope that the change in venue isn't too echoey, too out of the ordinary, but I'm trying to lean in as much as I can so that it doesn't sound too much of that room tone there. So like I said, our topic this week is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman comes out next week. We are recording this early because when this plays, we will be in Scotland.
Yes, we will.
For our 5-year anniversary trip.
Yes.
Which will be great.
We're not seeing it then.
We're not seeing...
Or it comes out after we get back? Or...
That's correct, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It comes out the week after this airs, so this one will come out the last week of May.
What did you say what comes out when we're gone?
The new Pirates movie.
Oh, never mind. That's awful. I just remember when we were on our honeymoon, what was it, Men in Black 3 came out and we walked past the theater. I think it was in Dublin or something, or maybe it was Belfast.
When we were in Belfast, there was a really big, so we got married in Northern Ireland, and in Belfast, they had the giant billboard, and it's not like you see in normal cities. There aren't as many billboards, and the one they have, they aren't as high off the ground as they are here. So it was this sizable thing that was sort of right in your face, advertising Men in Black 3, but we didn't go see it.
No, we didn't. You made a comment about, we could go see a movie, and I was like, I'm not going across the world to see Men in Black 3.
Right. No, that's fair.
Can wait till we get home.
I will say another time that I was in Europe, the time after we graduated college, I think, was when I went and did my solo trip. I did end up going to see, was I in Cork or something? I went to go and see Indiana Jones 4, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it was awful. But I wanted to go see what an Irish movie theater was like.
We sound very douchey. Talking about all the movies we've seen in Europe, and that one time, was it in Cork? I don't know.
Okay, well, whatever.
Nobody likes this anymore.
No, that's okay. I just kicked the table, so the microphone reverb. I know, it's my fault. So normally we start the show, as you know, because you actually listen to the show, which I still find surprising.
I do. It means you don't have to talk to me so much during the week.
Okay, so we start. We start with the weekly geekery, where we talk about the things we've been geeking out about this week.
Yes.
So how have you been keeping it geek this week, wife?
I don't have any traditional geek things. I mean, I'm a huge gardener. I've been trying to convince you to buy land so that I can go start a farm somewhere else. But it's planting season, so I've just been getting the gardens tilled and getting seedlings going, and that's all I do.
And to be fair, I suppose you can call yourself a garden geek, but you do have sort of a very specific form of geekery that you shared with me really recently. And that's that you like watching time-lapse videos of cake decorating.
I do. I don't know. It's a hole I have fallen deeply into on Instagram. It's just, I don't know why, but it's very cool to see something made so quickly, and I have zero creative ability, whether it be, drawing or music or, art in general. I'm a very mathematics, scientific person. I have no creativity whatsoever. And to see these things, and that's the thing, it doesn't make me hungry for cake. I am just in awe of the spectacle of how they do some of the stuff that they do. And it's just very interesting to me. That, and I play Pokemon Go. I guess that's my only...
Yeah, because you are really up there on Pokemon Go. And that's part of the reason I think you're excited to go overseas, is you want to get some of the regional... Because how out of Well, okay, so first of all, how many Pokemon do you have in your Pokedex right now?
I don't know off the top. You want me to check?
Your
Get my
phone's
phone
right there.
here.
Yeah. And
Okay, to be fair though, I do not like Pokemon. I mean, we had it as kids because we all had it, but it was mostly my brother who had it. So I knew of Pokemon by that, and I had tried to play it a little bit on my own on Game Boy or whatever it was on. And I got a little bit into it, but what age was that? Elementary school, middle school, something like that. It was pretty young and never picked it up again. But with Pokemon Go, me and some of our friends like to go walking at a bunch of different parks. So this gives you an excuse to do something other than just go walking, especially in the winter or when there's, everything's covered in snow or everything's brown and dead in the spring before it greens up. It's not exactly the most pretty thing to do. So Pokemon Go just gives you something else to do. I don't want to tell you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I have 230.
203?
230.
30 out of what?
Well, I want to tell you. Technically, there's 251.
Okay.
But they haven't released a bunch. And out of the ones that I can get without getting overseas, I'm missing 3.
Okay. So that's pretty good. So you might need to find a new form of geekery once that's finished up.
I'll probably just find... honestly, it'll probably be too deep into summer and I'll have vegetable patches going and whatever.
Sure.
But it's my one...
Or the game will update. And
or the
release
game
more.
will update and then I'll be screwed. And because I wasn't going to do it when they released the second batch of Pokemon. I was like, no, I just want to finish my one and then I can be done. And then you see those shadows on your game and you're like, oh my god, there's a thing in the neighborhood. I have to have it. And poor you, I drag you across the cities to go find Pokemon nests.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of going like way over to the other, like a 40-minute drive to go to like some small park in the middle of a neighborhood.
I do.
Northwest. I know. But in general, I don't mind getting outside. It's a thing that gets me outside.
Yes, and that was the thing. It was just something in the dead of winter when you just want to sit inside and be a loaf. It got me out to walk around and, hit those exercise goals.
Yeah. I really wish when, they say you need to walk 5 kilometers to hatch an egg or something, I wish it'd be able to sync up with like a Fitbit or just its own tracking of steps so that I can walk on a treadmill in the middle of winter, not in Minnesota where like would put my snowshoes on so I can go down the street.
The problem is it's so easy to hack a Fitbit to make you look like you had 20,000 steps. Remember we did it at the cabin. We had the fan going and I put my Fitbit on the dresser while the fan was going, and it basically shook it just at the right frequency to where I got like 20,000 steps. When I looked at it at 6 a.m., I was like, nope, no, I've taken 4 to get to the Fitbit.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to do that.
I suppose that's fair. As far as myself for this week, I am still reading because I'm sort of recording episodes in quick succession. So this isn't super long after the episode that I recorded with Liam going over news and reviews. So I am reading the Zatanna trade paperback, I guess, or collection of stories that's written by Paul Dini. He's the guy who created Harley Quinn on the Batman the Animated Series. He did Zatanna, which is the girl magician. So if you ever see people in costumes and they're basically wearing the top tuxedo thing or whatever and then fishnet stockings. So that's the character Zatanna. And I'm enjoying that for what it's worth. Haven't really done a whole lot of video gaming. I finished, because I'm trying to remember what's on. I haven't actually finished listening to the last episode, so I'm trying to remember where I said I was at things. I did finish season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I did finish season 1 of Rick and Morty, and I am now, as I said I was going to do, I'm about halfway through, I think, 4 or 5 episodes into the season 1 of Preacher. And it's a lot different from the comics, but I'm still enjoying it for what it is, just sort of because I kind of recognize what's going on. But I would be really curious to hear what people think about it who have never read the comic books, because I don't know if the show would seem sort of too slow, boring, or confusing, and you're not really sure where it's going in the first couple episodes, or how he's just automatically such best friends with this vampire. Spoilers, I guess. I think it's in the trailers for the show. And season 2 is coming back next month, but I'm gonna stick with whatever. Hopefully Hulu won't get rid of season 1, so I could finish watching it. And I think that's pretty much it. And I watched the documentary for last week's. Okay, so I guess when this airs...
Time travel.
I know, time travel. When this goes out, last week's episode will hopefully have been the Batman and Bill review with Fletch. So I'm actually... When I say last episode,
You're
I'm
like
thinking...
reverse promising people.
I know. According to when
on,
we're
Fletch.
According to when we're recording, yesterday was when the episode with Liam came out. And then tomorrow I'm recording the episode for next week, and then this is the episode for the week after that.
You're just confusing people.
I
Move
know.
on.
I'm confusing everybody. But that's it. That's it, I think. I haven't really done a whole lot of crazy... I'm still playing Future Fight. Like, while I work, I'll have it run in the background now that I'm far enough in the game where I can hit a button and it auto-plays for me. And I think that's it. Was there anything else super nerdy that I've done that you can think of?
Oh, I don't know. I've been
There was free comic book day, and I got to enjoy free comic book day, and I posted a picture of the comics that I picked up for that. But I haven't read all of them yet. The only one I've read is the Buffy the High School Years comic, which was split with a...
How is Buffy the High School Years a comic when it was a TV show? She was in high school.
Right, so it's just a comic book telling other stories of her, like, during her high school thing. You just have to assume there are other stories that happened that weren't part of the TV show.
I was going to say, is it Buffy the High School Years? Was it just rewriting the TV show?
No, I think sometimes people will do that, where they just take the same story and retell it in another medium. Same as there's, movie novelizations and stuff.
Yeah, but usually... it doesn't regress. I guess I shouldn't say it's not a regression, but it doesn't progress in that direction. It usually goes from, book or comic or whatever to TV/movie. It usually, I feel like it doesn't go the other way around as much.
It depends what the property is. If it's a genre thing, like if it's so clearly like, the Wonder Woman movie, they're probably going to make a comic book version. I have the comic book adaptation of the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie.
None of those words mean anything to me.
The guy that played Ivan Drago in Rocky IV.
I didn't watch that.
Okay. He played He-Man in the movie. You didn't see that either. No. Okay. All right. Anyway, it was the first...
Was he in Friends? Then I don't know him.
He was... I don't think he was in an episode of Friends. But the first Punisher movie from like the 1980s, it's not at all comic booky. And they made a comic book adaptation of it. So sometimes that happens, where there's comic book adaptations, or a lot of times, like with Doctor Strange, there was a comic book prequel. So you get a little bit of extra backstory that may or may not.
Right, but he was still an existing character before they made the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that you don't get a random character, side character, usually from a movie, and then it turns into a book later on. I guess I'm sure there's exceptions to everything. It's just not the usual way that things are done. No. It seems like TV and movies steals ideas from everybody else at the
Right, but then there's times where it flips back around, and especially in genre shows, comic books have a lot of continuations now. Where like X-Files had one, Buffy had one, Smallville had one. Where the TV shows continue, they can't afford to keep making them as TV shows,
right.
But you can tell the story further in another form. Fight Club got a sequel, but it's a sequel to the book, not a movie, in comic book form, written by the same guy that wrote the book.
But then the movie is irrelevant if it's a sequel to the book.
No, the comic book is a sequel to the book. The movie was an adaptation of the book.
Right. So I'm saying going back to a comic book form is not an adaptation from the movie. It's continuing the story.
Oh, you're just telling me that I'm wrong. Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's fine. But that's it. That's it for my weekly geekery. And because of when this is going to air, we're not really going to do any news. So are you ready to dive into the adventure that is going to be Wonder Woman?
Yes.
Fantastic. But first...
but first...
This.
I'm Void.
And I'm Beej.
And together, we're the Geek to Geek podcast. Well, we make it. It is kind of us, but I guess it's separate.
Every week, we pick a topic from geek or digital culture and chat about it for a while.
And you're invited. We talk about books and movies, games, comics, the internet.
Or really whatever we feel like.
Yeah, that too.
So look for the Geek to Geek podcast on iTunes.
Or wherever your podcasts are sold, or downloaded, or whatever.
And we are back.
What was that?
You know what that was. You've heard the show. That's the commercial break. Hey, wife.
Yes.
Did you know that this show is part of the Geek to Geek podcast network?
No, I sleep during that part.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Yes, I know.
Yes. So
rate, review, and subscribe and stuff.
that's it. Rate, review, and subscribe. Listen to all the different shows. Yes, we don't pay to advertise this show at all. You know, actually, there is one other thing that I want to get into before we do Wonder Woman. I should have brought this up beforehand. Like I said at the very beginning, this is our 50th episode. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal, right?
Yes.
It's very bigly.
BFD.
And this also marks, because by the date, so when this goes out, it will also be the 1-year anniversary of the comic box. So happy birthday, comic box.
What is that, the paper anniversary? Does that mean you go get a new paper comic book or something? Every year,
is it
like
thing.
50 years is like a diamond anniversary, so you're supposed to
Okay.
give each other gifts and diamonds.
First
and
year.
First year, I think, is paper.
It might be.
So you get to go get a new comic book.
You know, there's a place I could go and look if I can get really nerdy. I have the book that's John Winchester's journal from Supernatural, and in his journal he tracks where those are, because the whole thing is his wife's
Right.
dead, and he's trying to figure it out. But I think it starts after.
You can also ask Google. It's
I
probably
could.
faster.
Ask Siri, ask, what is it, Echo? Or no, you say, okay, Google, or whatever, don't you?
Yeah.
And pretend that it's not been listening to you this entire time, keeping track of everything you say.
Right. How's your tinfoil hat going?
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, because I don't know when I'll have you on the show again, what has the last year been like for you? Because you've been super cool in that, even though you do not care at all about comic books, mm-hmm. you've actually listened to every single episode. Mm-hmm. How do you feel we've done? The show has changed, and then more importantly, what's it like being sort of a podcast widow? Like, have I been... me, like, personally, am I spending more time on the show, less time on the show? Like, so what are your thoughts for the year, the year gone by?
I mean, I think you've done fine. It's very different than the podcasts I usually listen to, which are typically like health and fitness based or science of various topics based. So it's interesting to listen to a creative podcast in that it deals with something non-science-y. So that's been interesting. I think you have, I mean, I liked your podcast in the beginning. I thought you did a good job just being by yourself. I enjoy having your guests on, especially, you know, the ones that I know, like Liam and Fletch. But the problem with asking me that is I listened to your episode with Fletch a couple times because you two are so much fun to listen to, go back and forth. And I don't know if that's just because I know both of you personally or if it's because you're actually good conversationalists.
Okay.
And I can't tell.
So what is it like to be married to somebody that has to carve out time every week and tell you that, no, I can't spend time with you, I have to go work on a podcast? Or I have to go, not just that, but knowing that you're not a person who cares for comics at all, where I say, no, I can't do this with you, I have to go and read comic books for my podcast, or I have to go see this, comic book movie.
To be fair, you do a lot of it when I'm already in bed, because I'm an early to bed person and you're more of a night owl. Mm-hmm. So most of your reading is done after hours, so that really doesn't impact me at all. You do spend a lot of time just between prep and recording and then editing. Mm-hmm. I mean, but it's your hobby, so it just gives me an opportunity to go and do other things.
Okay. How nice are you being right now when you say it? Because you got a really big smile as you're like, you do spend some time.
I don't want to be mean because it's something that you tell me you enjoy, even though you sometimes get very frustrated. It makes me question whether you actually like doing it or not. Sure. Sometimes. But... It's just like me and my things. I went and tilled the gardens the last couple of days, and I can be cranky because I have a gigantic blister that's, I don't know, looks pretty gnarly on my hand.
Should I put a picture on Twitter?
No, that's gross. There are parts that you don't enjoy, but overall I enjoy my hobby just as I assume you enjoy yours. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing it, or you would be making plans to do something else, or just get rid of it. I don't know. So if you like it, who am I to say, who am I to whine that you don't spend enough time doing the things that I want to do when we don't have a lot of likes in common.
Okay. All right. I got really, almost serious for a second there. I asked the question.
You did.
I asked the question. So then what does it mean to you? Because I believe I told you, and I hope by this part we can say this officially, because I believe, I don't want to do this time travel thing again. By the time this comes out, it should be a couple weeks ago that Joe said officially, this being Joe Hogan from the Geektitude podcast, that he is doing a new real play, I think is what they call podcast, of a role-playing game, similar to like the Adventure Zone or the other podcasts like it. And that I don't know the specifics, but I believe that I am included in the roster for this show. So now I'm going to be spending, and the way we're going to be doing it is, it sounds like one massive recording session every couple of months, actually. So hopefully not a lot of time, but how do you feel about me jumping in and doing now a second podcast that I'm a part of, which I don't have to edit, though.
Right.
But I don't know what sort of in-between recording sessions extra work I would have to do.
Again, if it's your hobby and if it's something that you enjoy doing, then I say go for it.
Would you listen to that podcast as well?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, Joe.
Nope. That is completely fine and totally honest. Okay. So let's get out of the personal thing. Happy birthday, Comic Box. Hooray.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. That show that I did on a whim just because Void...
You're now a toddler.
I am... Yes. Just because Void had a video game news podcast, I said, I can do that for comic books. Because his rationale was, I look at video game news every single day. So I figure, why not just record and talk about it? And I said, I look at comic book news every single day. So, yeah, I can do a podcast talking about it. And it certainly evolved from, here's what I read last week, here's what I'm reading next week, let's talk a couple news pieces.
Reviews, right? We got to hear every single issue of Moon Knight being reviewed for like 6 months. Yeah,
where it was literally every issue of a comic book
I love you, but some of that was rough.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into Wonder Woman then, with a ba-da-ba-ba-doom, dip-a-da-doop-doop, ba-da-ba-doom, ba-da-da-ba-doom, dip-a-da-ba-doom, dip-dip topic of the week. Our topic of the week this week is, of course, Wonder Woman, which comes out next week, hopefully, if I did this right. Soon. It's also going to be the first time I actually pre-program episodes. Usually when I get it done editing, it's directly up, so I hope I don't screw it up.
So if this is up on Mother's Day, whoops.
Yeah, pretty much. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. All right, so Wonder Woman. First, I have some general history I'm going to throw at you. You are welcome to jump in if you want. You sat back. Okay. So you've heard the podcast before.
You talk a lot.
I know I do. Because I told you about what Liam does, right? I don't know if I've ever actually said this on the podcast. When I'm going on my binges where I'm digging into the research or whatever that I recorded, Liam will turn off his microphone, or rather, Liam will mute himself in the program we use to chat with one another, but his mic is still live and recording, and he will just make these really snide remarks that I don't hear until I match up the audio and I go through editing. That's when I hear him shouting over me, arguing with me, calling me names, lots of things that aren't air appropriate.
I can't do that because we're sharing a mic right now.
Yes, we are. Yeah, there is no 2 tracks for me to edit together later.
I can text you.
No, thank you. So Wonder Woman first appeared in comic books in All-Star Comics number 8 in December of 1941. The character was created by William Moulton Marston, who is a psychologist who is already famous for inventing the polygraph, which is cool because it sort of leads to that lasso of truth thing that Wonder Woman has. So he stuck upon the idea of this new type of superhero, and he wanted one that would triumph not with fists. I must have copied this from somewhere. Who would triumph not with fists or firepower, but with love. And then he told this to his wife, who said, "Fine, but make her a woman." And that's how we got Wonder Woman. There's also a lot more history there between him and his wife, and potentially them having a polyamorous relationship with a third woman that lived with them for years, and how
Not important.
well, some of it eventually gets kind of important when you talk about how he may have been, into bondage and things, and that actually factored into a lot of the early Wonder Woman stories, but we will ignore that. So, Wonder Woman is Diana of Themyscira, also known as Paradise Island. It is the island where the Amazons live. It is a race, I guess, of women, and depending on what origin story you read, sort of tells you how more Amazons even happen. Otherwise, the idea is they're on this island and they're pretty much immortal, and they do not allow men to set foot on the island. We briefly got an introduction of this version that we'll see in the movie in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, but we didn't really get to learn a whole lot. She was clearly on some mission to figure out what Lex Luthor was up to, and we got a little clip where they were doing research, and Batman saw a picture of her that looked like it went back to, it was like 1915 or whatever, right before World War I or in the middle of World War I, and that is when this movie takes place. So that's our movie version. But as far as the comics go, because it looks like we're still going to get an origin in one of the trailers, because I made you watch like 4 trailers plus a 5-minute clip from Batman v Superman because you hadn't seen the movie.
Right.
So she says she was brought to life by Zeus in the trailer. In the comic books, there's a couple different origins. The one that I guess was sort of most popular is that her mother, Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, wanted a daughter. And so she molded one out of clay on the beach and then prayed to Zeus. And then Zeus sent down his lightning, and it turned this child of clay into a real baby.
Right. I mean, she said in the trailer that she was brought alive by Zeus, but then in, I don't know, one of the other trailers that you showed me, it was that whole, she can never know what she is. So I was like, well, clearly she's not made by Zeus.
Or is, but not in the way you're thinking. There is another comic book origin in the New 52 version where she found out that she is, in effect, a demigod because she is half god, because Zeus is, in fact, her father. So that Zeus had an affair with Hippolyta, Zeus being famous for having affairs in that whole mythology. So that she finds out she actually is an, I guess not an heir or whatever, but she's half god. And I want to say there's another one where is it that she was the daughter of Ares, or found out that her mom had an affair with the god of war, Ares, at some point as well. But these are the two different varying origins of her as a person. So generally what happens in the comics is this guy, Steve Trevor, Chris Pine character, crashes. He's a pilot, or he's, whatever. I have here U.S. intelligence agent is what I had. Crash lands, somehow manages to find Paradise Island, not intentionally, and is brought to shore, and they talk, and Diana realizes that she has to go and help, or in some cases, everybody decides that somebody needs to go and help, and a tournament is held to decide who is going to go back to man's world. I'm using finger quotes when I say that. Man's world, in order to fight whatever this evil is. And in some stories, Diana is not supposed to compete, so she wears a helmet and you don't see who she is or whatever. In others, she just competes, mops the floor with everybody because she is either one way or the other, brought to life by Zeus in some fashion. And so then she gets the garb, and I've read different accounts here where sometimes it's what she wears looks sort of like the American flag because it has the original version of Wonder Woman has the skirt with the blue skirt with white stars, that sort of thing. Others say it where, oh, your garb looks like our flag. Oh, well, gee, and it also has an eagle. Well, wonderful. You'll fit right in America. And then she goes back and does her thing. Now, in the comic books, she's never actually around during World War II, though. It's not World War I, World War II. She's fighting Nazis because she was introduced in the early 40s. Eventually in the comics it got retconned to say that it was actually her mom, Hippolyta, who was the first Wonder Woman during World War II, just to try and streamline storylines. So there's a chance that you'll pick up a comic book and they'll talk about Hippolyta being Wonder Woman.
Is there a chance that I will pick up a comic book and have that happen?
You, the listener. But she's done a whole bunch of other stuff during her comic book career. Multiple times she's been killed and resurrected in different forms. She's become a goddess multiple times. One time she was the goddess of truth. One time she actually replaces Ares as the god of war. There was one time where she loses her powers, and it was this misguided attempt by the writer to create a more feminist icon, where instead of being Wonder Woman and running around and doing things, she wears like this white jumpsuit and knows karate and is like a detective. Yeah, for some reason it was decided that that was more independent rather than her having superpowers. But there's a lot of people that don't get it. Like when she joined the Justice Society of America during World War II, the original creator, Marston or whatever, was absolutely pissed off because the role that they put her in was as the secretary for the Justice Society. And he just about lost it because he had created instantly this huge feminine icon. But some people still don't get it. Wonder Woman was made an honorary ambassador of something for the United Nations. And then they pulled it because too many people wrote angry letters for some reason. Because they don't really get the Wonder Woman character, I guess. Or the idea that, well, it's a woman running around in a bathing suit, male fantasy, yada, 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 instead of actually knowing the real origins of the character. That it was written by somebody who was incredibly progressive for his time.
Yeah, but just because you're progressive for your times doesn't mean you're progressive right now. You know what I mean?
Sure. Though I still think he would be. I mean, the whole idea was, he was saying, all right, we have all these male heroes. Granted, when he came up with the idea, it wasn't necessarily male. It was his wife who said, fine, but you're making a female
right
hero.
So basically he was doing what his wife told him to do.
Which I'm not going to fault. Right? You can still reach me.
Yes.
Run opposite sides of the microphone. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's Wonder Woman in a nutshell. Any questions as far as Wonder Woman's story, history?
No.
Okay. Now you saw the trailers and you saw all of the trailers. And then you also saw the clip from the movie. So clearly she has something where she can slap her bracelets together, or like there's one scene where for this movie that she's looking at her hands like she doesn't know where that power came from. I got nothing for you on that. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, that's not in the comic books at all.
Okay.
But do you feel like this movie is pretty much going to sync up with that origin? Do you think they're going to go a different direction? I know you don't care. I'm seeing the way that you're looking at me right now.
Okay, to be fair, the way I'm looking at you is it's 10:20 and my bedtime was like an hour and a half ago. So that's the way I'm looking at you is just I'm tired. But do I think it's going to sync up with the origin? I don't know.
Okay.
Did any of the other movies sync up with the origin? Kind of. So it'll probably kind of sync up.
Okay. No, you're right. That was a bad question to ask. What do you think would make a more interesting movie then? The idea that it's somebody made out of clay, or somebody who believes she was made out of clay and you find out that she is actually part God. You know, like, does it ruin her origin story if an affair is what was involved with, even if it's Zeus, you know, a man versus a woman praying and getting her prayers answered, and so there's, you know what I mean? Like, for a character being sort of a feminist icon, is it better for there to not super directly be a man involved? I guess if Zeus still sends down his lightning, but it's not quite the same, of course.
I guess I do not know the answer to that question that you sprang on me just now.
That's fine.
Didn't let me think about for a couple minutes. You know, I don't think it really matters, because your origin, as far as the first half of the movie, I mean, it really doesn't matter, as long as once you figure out where you're from or whatever, you end up doing good things and doing good work and fulfilling whatever you want. I feel like whether you're bit by a spider or whether there's, gamma radiation or or you're part Zeus, I don't think it really matters, because in the arc of someone's storyline, that's a relatively small part of it.
Okay. Well, let's let's talk characters. Let's talk some of the other people that are going to be in this movie. First, there's Steve Trevor. He's the guy who's being played by Chris Pine. He was used in the early comics as, and the quote I have here is, gentleman in Jeopardy. So instead of the damsel in distress,
Yeah.
he was the reverse of that. It seems like we might get a little bit of that in this movie. I'm kind of hoping we get more of it rather than less of it, because I think the whole point of Wonder Woman's character originally was to turn that whole thing on its head.
Right, but the problem that I have with that is again, I have just watched the trailer, so I could be completely wrong, is that when you think of a damsel in distress, you think of, this woman who is, oh my gosh, I'm whatever up in this tower, or I'm having issues, come save me, and the man saves her, and that's the end of it. And then this man is heroic, and she comes into his world, and happily ever after ensues. Whereas, based on what I saw from the trailer, it's, oh yes, he is the gentleman in Jeopardy, and she goes to save him, and she has to conform to all of his world's standards.
Sure.
So it's a really crappy comparison, because
Hey.
it's not completely flipping it on its head. It's still the woman getting super feminist here, the woman conforming to what the man needs, because I'm asking for help, but you gotta do it my way.
And I see, and that's definitely going to be a big part of it. You can tell a big part of this movie is very much a fish out of water story, where she goes to London and she doesn't get it. And that actually brings us to the next character, who is Etta Candy, who's played by Lucy Davis. She's Wonder Woman's best friend, a vivacious woman with a can-do attitude. So she is a student at the Holiday College for Women. This is the comics we're talking about. So it's a women's college. They call themselves the Holiday Girls. Basically becomes Wonder Woman's sidekick. Mostly she was just a Golden Age character. She does show up later on, and it's really bad that her name is Etta Candy. She's from Texas. Her parents are, and I'm not joking you, named Hard Candy and Sugar Candy. Her brother's name is Mint Candy, and her boyfriend's name is Oscar Sweet Gulper. Yeah. And so her whole thing was, she is the overweight,
I was gonna say,
friend.
is she the fat friend? That is so ridiculous.
Her trademark call was woo woo, which might have been a thing taken from the Three Stooges, and then she would say things like, for the love of chocolate. But I see the look you're giving me right now.
Oh, this guy was so progressive for his time.
So the idea of her over the years was that it was okay to be that person. I mean, obviously she's the wacky sidekick. Just like the first, a lot of people don't remember this, the first Green Lantern actually had a sidekick named, or no, that was Doiby Dickles. Plastic Man had a sidekick named Woozy Winks, and everybody had a wacky sidekick. So the idea is it was the wacky...
the fact that your only female superhero has to have a fat chick as a friend, like that's her best friend, because that is still that whole, like, I need to feel superior, so I'm going to hang out with a fat chick.
I guess. I would argue that it's more the idea of seeing the person rather than, what they...
You would like to think that. However, there were many other ways that could have been put into place without stereotyping like this. And granted, this was what? 30s? 40s?
She first
Sure,
appeared in
whatever.
1942. Yeah. Yeah. So eventually they did storylines where she was dealing with like an eating disorder before coming to be okay being a larger woman, and that sort of thing. I didn't put down what year that was, but I put modern age, so it was after 1985. And these days, she is still Steve's secretary, but she's a commander in this secret organization called Argus. So she still works under Steve, but she's like a spy, whatever. Now, her character very much in the trailers that we saw is just that. I mean, she's not the fat friend. She's Steve Trevor's secretary, and she is there to throw out snappy one-liners. She's clearly comic relief. Good thing, bad thing, necessary?
I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure that it's needed, just because if you're going to be doing the fish out of water thing, there's plenty of comic relief that could happen within just that alone. So is it necessary to tell the story and keep the story moving and keep it lighthearted, or is it just something that people are accustomed to where even though it's a drama, something has to be funny?
Yeah,
because
I think
people
it's
are
being
afraid of
painted-
emotions.
I think it's being painted probably more of an action movie,
Right.
So that action adventure thing is, they have to have the wisecracking sidekick. It's a very Hollywood sort of way to go. Instead of having everybody in your movie actually be deeper, more intricate characters. I don't see that we're going to be getting a whole lot out of Etta Candy. I'd love to be wrong, but I think it's going to be one of these, I'm short and I'm heavier, but I don't care, go me sort of thing, which is great to have in a movie.
Yeah.
It's just if it's done because it's in direct opposition to the main character sort of thing, and it's used more to hold up Wonder Woman than it is to have her own character be developed.
I suppose.
Right? That's going to be the big argument, is if Etta Candy is her own character in her own right, then it's fine, but if her being there is clearly just to be the opposite, to show us how prettier
Right.
Wonder Woman is. Okay, well, the only other things we really get from these trailers are there's, it looks like a female villain that they call Dr. Poison, who has part of a half face mask thing, which was made for people in World War I when they would get caught in explosions and things. They would make sort of fake faces for them because plastic surgery really wasn't a thing at the time. But that's really all we know. And we see her on the battlefield, so we know that she's fighting people on the battlefield. We see her in a dress with a sword hidden. And there's this really wonderful image where somebody shows that shot of her from behind, and then it does like an X-ray thing, because it's like there's no straps, there's no how is that sword being held in place, and it just shows it being clenched between her butt cheeks to be able to hold the sword up.
Did a guy put this together?
I have no idea.
Probably.
I suppose, but it's just the idea of like that.
It couldn't be. The sword was turned the wrong way.
No, I mean it exactly the way.
Oh,
I'm
really?
Not, yes, wide. Yeah, with the blade flat against her, because it needs to be held up by something, and the theory being the knot at the back of her dress is not strong enough to hold up that entire sword, but because she's Wonder Woman,
God,
that's the way that she manages to hold
well, I'm
the sword.
glad this is a classy conversation.
Oh, isn't it? So classy. So classy. But the point I wanted to make anyway was we get those couple images, so we know that there's some things that she's doing in her Diana Prince identity, and obviously things directly on the battlefield, and we know there's somebody named Dr. Poison, and that's pretty much all we know. And I'm a fan of this because we know it's going to be an origin story, because I guess Wonder Woman, like before I said it, did you know where Wonder Woman came from?
I knew she was an Amazon and from, the place of Amazons, but that's pretty much it.
So it's not quite as clear as like Batman's origin. His parents get killed. That's kind of one everybody knows, so you don't really need to keep repeating it. Or Peter Parker bitten by a spider.
Right.
Uncle Ben dies. Great
Right.
power, great responsibility. Superman, planet explodes.
Right.
Yeah. So is it necessary for us to have an origin story for Wonder Woman?
I think you can do an origin story where you keep the actual origin relatively small and have a real story that takes up most of the movie. I think that's fine, especially if you're setting it up for later on for a bigger movie or a series of movies, kind of like they did with the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those plot points or some of those character developments come through then I think it's fine.
Or something like the note that I wrote down here of not really knowing anything was comparing it to the Guardians of the Galaxy, where you look up a synopsis for the movie and there's way too much in there, where this one you don't have a whole lot. Mm-hmm. But thinking back to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the origin you get for Star-Lord is immediate. His mom dies, he gets abducted by aliens, now he's an adult and he calls himself an outlaw.
Exactly. And then it's a completely different story that's not even related to that, really. There's a little hint of it here and there, but they really didn't get into more of his origin until the second movie.
Right.
So I think that's great.
Yeah, if they're able to do it. I think this isn't going to dwell too long on it, but I think it's such a big part of who Wonder Woman is is that mission of her leaving and going into man's world. But hopefully we won't be an hour and a half into, what the 2.5 hour, whatever the run. I don't know what the runtime is going to be. I didn't look that part up.
So long.
But yeah, the superhero movies are getting longer. This one is clearly lots and lots of green screen going on. It has that awful thing where it's colorful, but not really.
Yeah.
It's muddy. Like I showed you the scene from Batman v Superman where everything is just dark blues and grays. So I don't know if I'm really excited for that, to see what they do with it. But the big question, obviously, for this, and the other reason I thought that it would be fun to have you on the podcast, just so it's not a couple of dudes talking about this. There have been female-led comic book movies in the past, but usually they're things like Elektra or Catwoman or Supergirl way back in the day, and I don't even remember if that was a made-for-TV movie or whatever. But generally, they don't get a whole lot of money, and they're usually not done super well. There might be somebody out there that's remembering one that's going to yell at me and tell me I'm wrong. But certainly in this recent batch, we've had how many movies with Black Widow in it, but they still won't even put it on the docket for her to get her own movie. Marvel's going to do Captain Marvel instead. Mm-hmm. Is it a big deal to finally have a standalone Wonder Woman movie?
I think it is a big deal, and I think it is a good thing. I just hope they do it right.
And what do you mean by that?
Just that there's a lot of stereotypes when you get into movies with female main characters. And I just hope that they paint her as the badass that she's supposed to be. And what's Chris Pine's character's name?
Steve Trevor.
Steve. So, Steve.
I like the way you caught on it, Steve.
I just hope it doesn't turn into some sort of, Steve asked me to come save man's world or whatever, so I'm here to be a badass, and then Steve ends up saving her in the end. I think that is stupid, and I will be super pissed off if you come and tell me that that's what happened.
And I like the way you put that, because the other question is...
I'm not seeing it.
Okay. You're not even bothering to go see the movie.
I won't see it in... Okay, to be fair, I won't see it before you have the next one out. Because
sure. You're not going to go see it opening weekend like
no,
I am.
No. I will maybe see it later on. Who knows if it'll be in the theater or maybe it'll be a Redbox thing, but it's not something that I mean, there are very few movies that I'm like, I have to go see this in the theater.
Right.
So, anyway, so there's a lot of stereotypes that they could fall into, and I hope that they do it correctly and put her in this progressive light that she's supposed to be put in.
Yeah.
I feel like, again, not having seen the movie, but having seen the trailers, all I can think of is how different of a movie it would have been had Crush been the main character.
Oh, Gina Carano.
If she, because as I'm watching this trailer and as I'm watching the Batfleck Superman movie clip, she's got that like, I'm gonna fight you face, and I don't buy it. Like it doesn't scare me. And whereas if Gina Carano came up and like gave me a scowl, I'd probably pee my pants.
And I think that's a thing that Gal Gadot, the actress playing Wonder Woman, has gotten a lot of flack for. And the idea of, okay, what do we want Wonder Woman to look like? She gets drawn differently by a lot of people. The idea of Amazons being taller or mightier, sometimes she's drawn incredibly muscular, usually much taller than other people. And other times she's not. Other times she's drawn thinner or more, I don't know what's the terms, felt. But the idea that, say her arms, for example, aren't rounded with muscle, but the idea is they're not super skinny either, that there's muscle there. And there's shots of Gal Gadot in the gym, and she looks pretty ripped when she's lifting weights, but yeah, in general, she doesn't look like a female bodybuilder or quite like an MMA fighter.
Sure,
like Gina Carano.
And it doesn't have anything to do with her physical from the neck down. It's her facial expression.
Oh, okay.
Just, you know what I mean? Like if you are watching a movie and some guy gets really into it and it makes you believe and they're angry, like they have a certain look on their face, and I don't feel like she has that as well as someone like, a Gina Carano or
sure.
I don't know.
Okay. Though in that scene from Batman v Superman, I think the idea was that she was having fun. Like, you see her smile as she's getting batted around by Doomsday. Like, she loves the fact that she's fighting a giant rock monster.
Okay. I didn't see the rest of the movie.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to,
I didn't.
but I just
guess, I guess I apologize then, because I thought, I didn't think you were talking about her facial expression. I thought you just didn't buy her as being strong enough and powerful enough versus Gina Carano, who was in Deadpool the last time that we saw her.
Right, and then that one movie, that spy movie, it was like an independent movie that we watched. I don't remember what it was.
I think.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just most recently, because she got super built. Like, she really bulked up for Deadpool just to look, as intimidating as possible.
And it wasn't a comment on her physical stature. It was her facial expressions of, I don't believe you're angry.
Gotcha. Well, her stature was the thing that she got a lot of flack for, because, of course, it's the internet, and the internet is full of men who are jerks. And I suppose women. I'm not going to... let's not be sexist. I'm sure there's women out there.
We suck sometimes.
But the idea that she wasn't built enough, and it kind of depends, because Wonder Woman is such a deep character in that you need to balance the idea that she is supposed to look like she was molded from clay and given life by gods, and then at the same time, she has to be strong, fierce, and independent while still being, beautiful and deep. And Hollywood has such a problem doing that with female characters, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's like they take a character, but she's going to be bumbling and needs a man or whatever. And in comic book movies too.
Okay, but if we're going on the whole she was molded by clay thing, I feel like a woman designing a woman who's supposed to be a fighter would definitely change that design. Yeah.
Though, well, molded as a baby, I guess. But just the idea that would look like a sculpture, of a Greek woman. If you go and you see some of those sculptures
of Greek women were made by men.
Yes.
So, again, if you're an Amazon and you pride yourself on kicking butt, you are not going to have someone with dainty legs and small feet. You're going to have someone who can, with
big feet, because they can kick somebody harder in the chest with them.
But you know what I mean? Like, yes, you're not going to go with the stereotypical, waif style beauty. You're going to go with someone who's more muscular, who's a little thicker, who really looks like she's gonna kick the crap out of you.
Xena.
Yes.
Yeah, because clearly there's some Xena influence on the costume.
Right.
With the different styled skirt, I guess, versus the underwear bottoms, or in the TV show that never made it. I have the pilot somewhere that I found online, but I never watched it. There's some where she's wearing the trunks, the swimsuit, and there's other times where she's wearing long pants. Because there was, for a moment, Wonder Woman in the New 52 was actually going to wear pants.
Yeah, and you showed me that design, and I liked it, because it was like pants and a leather jacket or something like that.
That's before this one.
Oh, whatever then.
But yes, but that more modern look. And I think that was the run, because I get to say it, was the run that was written by Greg Rucka.
God.
I never read it.
Greg Rucka? Really? Do you like him?
I don't know, wife. Am I a fan of his writing?
It's a drinking game for your podcast.
Is
Every time he says it should be. Greg Rucka, drink.
He's a good writer, and he knows how to write female characters well, is the other thing. Though I would suggest, just to throw this out there as we sort of close things out, if people out there are looking for a Wonder Woman run, some people will suggest this new Rebirth run. I would say go back and do the original New 52 run that was written by Brian Azzarello. It's really good. It dives into this plot twist that she is Zeus's daughter and is actually a demigod, and her whole thing is she meets another woman who just had a child, and you find out the father of that child is also Zeus. It was another time of Zeus coming down and having an affair with the woman who thought she was just meeting a guy in a bar, and protecting that child from all the other gods. So it gets more into the pantheon type of things. It has nothing to do with the greater DC universe, so you don't have to deal with a whole bunch of guest stars and stuff like that, and it doesn't get confusing. You don't need to know what's going on in greater comic books. And I liked that a lot. As much as this new run is pretty good, I think that was my favorite thing I ever read with Wonder Woman in it, besides like JLA, Grant Morrison's JLA run, because he did a great job of writing her as well. So final thoughts on Wonder Woman before we close things out?
Why can't she have shoulder straps? Like, is that her superpower, that her boobs keep up items of clothing without, they defy gravity? Like, is that her superpower?
I'm going to completely agree with you. Well, I do, because I say it on this podcast all the time. There is actually a full website that I found a while ago that just catalogs the change in her costume over time as different artists pick it up and try and come up with something different to do, and how every once in a while you get a strap. But usually, I liked that. I wish I remember what the website was, because the person doing the website was always super critical of, this doesn't make any sense for battle. The idea that, okay, if you're going to dress like an ancient warrior, then sure, it would be a skirt and your legs might be bare. That's fine.
Sure.
But the idea of, are you wearing, this is the number one thing I think of anytime I see any woman who is supposed to be a superhero or anything like that in a movie. Are you wearing heels?
Yeah.
Or are you wearing wedges? Because I think Wonder Woman wears wedges.
I don't know. But I was so encouraged when the trailer started and she had that one strap thing on, which isn't great, because any woman who's ever worn a one strap dress, especially with larger chest muscles, we'll say,
Okay.
that is rough. That is not as supportive as you would think. And it's like it'd be like carrying your paper bag, or, when you were a student, your bag over your shoulder.
Like the messenger bags.
Yeah, the messenger bags. That's what I'm trying to say. On one shoulder all the time. Like, it literally shifts your spine and your rib cage.
Yeah.
But I was encouraged because there were straps. And then it was like the big reveal of, here comes Wonder Woman, and yep, it's her costume, and yep, it's a corset. You can't breathe in that.
No, I wonder if the reason they didn't add straps to it was because the rest of the design, it would have been too much like Xena, maybe, because Xena actually had straps because it was holding up armor.
Right, but I feel like you could.
It wouldn't take.
You've got a creative department. Get creative.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. It's like, I get it with Wonder Woman, but also, the idea of a woman wearing armor, the armor needs to be shaped like a female body and have boobs.
Yeah,
rather than like Captain Nope, I'm not gonna get it right. From Star Wars of the silver stormtrooper armor. I know you didn't see it. Or maybe I did get you to see that one. I think it's Captain Phasma.
No, it was like 30 seconds, and I was like, this is boring, rub my feet. No, I'm just kidding. I don't remember what. But I watched it for like 20 minutes.
It's someone in silver stormtrooper armor, and you just find out because of the voice that it's a female.
Right.
It's that it doesn't need to.
There is no benefit to a woman being able to move, to have a sweetheart neckline, because it makes your boobs look bigger on her armor. That is stupid.
Yeah.
You do not need to show your cleavage. That is, if you're looking for someone to put on armor, you're probably going to cover that whole area. You know why? Because there's some important organs under there.
Sure.
But so I would have liked her to have shoulder straps, but whatever. I just hope that they do it well, because I do think that this could open the door to other female-led, superhero movies, even though, I feel like we're kind of oversaturated as is. At least we're finally getting something in there. Like I said, I just hope they do it well and that they don't, mess it up.
Because if they do, it could lead to Marvel not putting out Captain Marvel. I would hope that they feel they have a big enough fan base to do that, but it could lead to others getting nixed. Final question for you then, and I know this is going to be tough because you don't have a wide comic book knowledge. If you had to pick a female-led comic book movie or superhero movie or whatever, is there another character that you would rather see, or in addition to Wonder Woman?
Squirrel Girl! It's literally the only other one I kind of know.
Okay.
Only because I liked her in the Marvel Lego game.
And she's coming to television.
No.
Okay. Squirrel Girl is coming to television in the New Warriors TV show.
Oh, I think you did tell me that.
Yeah. It's probably going to go the way of Powerless, though. I don't think you can do a good superhero
comedy.
Yeah, I just don't think people want it.
So, back to your question.
Except for a cartoon.
What other one would I want to see? I don't know. again, because my knowledge is so limited, but I would like to see somebody who is from the real world, if you will, because it's kind of like your Iron Mans and your Peter Parkers and your Hulks and Captain America. They were all from the real world versus Diana being from a completely separate island, closed off. She wasn't in society like all of these other characters were, where something happened to them within the context of a normal life, even if it was a period piece like Captain America back in the, 20s, 30s? Or
Captain
whatever.
America, World War II.
Yeah, okay. So back in that time frame, it's still a period piece, but it was still the real world as we know it. Versus having someone who's supposedly part god and, very not real life. Somebody a little more relatable. Because when you have someone from real life, there are things that I would be able to relate to with you as a character versus someone who is a god living on an island with no men and where they're all warriors and
Sure.
she's a princess. There's very little that I can relate to with that.
Sure. So, would Black Widow count, or is the fact that she was raised in this spy academy her whole life to be a killer sort of be excluding that? Well, what about, we never got to see Agent Carter.
I know, they took it off. I would have liked to have seen that.
They only have a couple, or unless they do. I didn't think Hulu had all of it, though.
I don't think they do anymore, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I think Agent Carter would be great. Black Widow, I think that's fine because she still lives and operates in the real world. I mean, just because you were, raised in a spy camp to kill, that's a really cool thing, but you're still in society as we know it.
I guess in some way. To me, I look at it as the same as being an alien because you don't necessarily know what the real world is because you're always in
True.
spy mode kind of thing. You're not a normal person that something happens to.
Very true.
You were, but you were so young when that happens. I'm trying to think if there's any characters that really function that way. I suppose so, because there's all the different female characters out there who become heroes for that reason.
Yeah, and I just hope some of these storylines don't revolve around, what is it, the sexy lamp thing? I always forget what that's called.
Yeah, is it Bachner? It's the something test.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the sexy lamp test. If the female character could be replaced by a sexy lamp and it would not affect the plot at all.
Right, and I just hope it doesn't turn into something like that. Obviously, it can't, exactly be that, but basically, you hope it doesn't fall back on all of those stereotypes of I need a man, or I'm doing this because of a man, or
which is what Wonder Woman is doing, in a sense.
In a sense, yes, but you know what I mean. To gain approval for this man,
right.
From this man, whatever, those kinds of things. I really hope they don't fall back into that because we have enough of that in everything.
Right. So would you be more... I'm asking more questions. I said I wouldn't ask you more questions. We didn't mention in the Weekly Geekery that you went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with me.
I did.
Which has female characters in it that have very little to do with men. Nebula, for example, has nothing to do with, approval from men and that sort of thing.
Right.
Or neither of those characters could be replaced with a lamp.
Correct.
In that movie. And the same with Mantis even. And that whole pseudo relationship, but not really. Though at the same time, I guess Gamera does have that love story with Peter Quill that I don't know is necessary.
Right.
By any means.
Anyway, what question are you getting at?
Whether that counted for you, of seeing something like that. Now, it's not female-led.
Right.
But the idea of that type of character, is that still okay to do? Because it feels like another trope of doing the sisterhood thing as well.
It is, and I'm okay with the sisterhood thing to some extent, but my issue was, like you said, the love story with Gamora and Peter Quill. Yeah, it was totally unnecessary, so I feel like they sort of fell back on that. The Nebula thing, I like her, but I feel like her character, she was so well defined and wonderfully evil in the first one. Like, you got her. And in this, they sort of wavered that, and not in like a personal growth kind of way. In a, we need to have her have one-line quippy things to say. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. That's not what she would do. You know what I mean? Like, she's this badass just going to kill someone. She doesn't need a quippy one-liner for your amusement.
Sure.
And that bothered me a little bit.
And that's what I'm worried about for Etta Candy.
Exactly.
She's going to turn into the one-liner quip machine.
Right. And if they turn around and make her some sort of, intricate part to some intelligence agency, like you said, then that's great. And her cover is just this whatever twitty person. I mean, I guess that's okay. But I would prefer my female-led superheroes be overtly badass and stick to that and not need the support of a boyfriend.
Right. Okay.
It's really late.
No, that's fine. We can.
I feel like I'm just getting bitchy.
No, and that works. It works. It makes for good podcast. No, we can wrap it up. So that is sort of your preview. It's not quite a usual preview that we have, where I go through intricate detail of comic book history and that sort of thing, so you know exactly what you're going to see on the screen. But at the same time, the nice thing about this movie is we are not exactly sure what we're going to see. So thank you, wife, for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. And we will go a close the comic box on issue 50 on 1 year of the comic box. A last reminder for everybody to please subscribe or send us a star rating or a review on iTunes. Let you know this is part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. You can find out more about our shows at geektogeekcast.net. If you'd like to send comments or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at comicboxcast. You can send an email to us at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you would like to share your thoughts with the rest of our Geek to Geek cast community, we have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/Geek to Geek cast. I look forward to hearing what you guys think about the movie. I will do my best to see Wonder Woman opening weekend and post a review for you guys. And then that thread will serve for, spoilers of all kinds and that sort of thing. I have nothing for you for the poll list. Go see Wonder Woman. Because like I keep saying, even the bad comic book movies, I kind of want to give them my money just so they get deeper and deeper into comic books and start pulling, the more obscure ones. Everybody will have their favorites. You'll see a Booster Gold one day, or you'll see something that's not awful. I don't know.
Captain Quail.
No,
what was...
Quail Man.
Quail Man.
From Doug?
Yes. Not a doctor. Shh.